Welcome back to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht, and today's guest is Julie Wignall, author of The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you, Kelly. It's great to be here.
First of all, I have to ask you, your name seemed easy. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And if you didn't, I would have answered. So
Okay. I had a slight panic as it came out of my mouth. I'm like, did I say it right? Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty easy, but so I would love to have you just start out by telling us about the book, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies, and the subtitle is How to Shine Your Light Brighter and Transform the World. Tell us about this book and why you wrote it.
I wrote this book. This was actually a second manuscript that I wrote. Then, because I realized halfway through, this was the story that I wanted to tell now, and that the other could come later. Writing is a process, and you go through a whole series of changes, and growing. And it's like, why do you write the book in the first place? I wrote this because I wanted this to be a call to action. The extraordinary power of fireflies. Everybody's got a light inside them, and change and transformation in the world is not a spectator sport. We need people to get off the sidelines with their hopes and their dreams and wishes, and we need them to start taking action. So how to do that? So I went through a whole process in terms of, I have this message I want to get out to people, and I want people to start learning how to connect with each other and to know that they can change the world and what changes the world at what different levels. And I didn't write this to be the next War and Peace. I wanted this to be a book that's used. My ultimate sign of success is the day I find my book in a used bookstore and it's got dog-eared pages and things underlined and go, I need to use this, and this. I spent time in bookstores and a lot of time in libraries asking people, when you read a book, what's important to you and what gets you through the book? How many people start books and they never finish? And I listened. One of the things I was told was people said, I hate books, especially if they're like action, self-help types of books. I hate books that have really long chapters because I always feel guilty being able to put it down. And I went, that's a good point. So I thought, okay, if I have a chapter, what if I take it and I put it into 5 subchapters or 4 subchapters? Let's make it really easy so that even if you haven't finished the chapter, you go, here's a subchapter, quick. I got the message. Here it is. And then I heard from people reading that, I love books like this, but I want something that's going to help me take it from the page to putting it into action in my daily life. So I went, okay, great concept. I'm going to include a workbook in this. So at the end of every chapter, I'm going to include just a short exercise of what you can do to take these ideas and put them into action in your life. And then the biggest thing, Kelly, part of this, I have a very unconventional background, and I wanted to share with people, you don't have to follow A to go to B to go to C, or we use all of these excuses not to move forward. And get off that train and go for it. But I thought, okay, this is my story. And it made me sit back and I went, if I was reading my story and listening to the feedback I got from people, how many times have we read things and we went, yeah, but she could do that, but I can't. He could accomplish this, but I can't. So I have this idea that I am bringing across a couple of different points in each chapter. And instead of just my story, I wanted to highlight people who I define as fireflies, people who see beyond whatever is, and they take action. They're not waiting for governments to change. They're not waiting for permission. They're just doing what needs to be done in the world, and they're making a huge difference. And I thought, I've got like 10 chapters in this book, and I'm going to go in every chapter, I want to highlight 2 people or groups around the world that really are different examples of what I'm saying, because the lessons that I'm sharing, the things that I've learned, there's more than one way to put them into action in your life. And here's the way that I did it. Here's the way somebody else did it. And here's a third way, that there's always another way. It's a matter of finding what feels comfortable for you. So here's the pulling the curtains from behind the scenes. Imagine this. I started working on this book during the pandemic. And I picked 20 groups that if I gave you the list of names, you would probably go, wow, I think I've heard of this, or I've heard this story, or the person sounds really familiar. They were all people who had at different times been featured in headlines for amazing things that they've done. And I have an incredible publisher and a very supportive author group. And they said, you know what, Julie, everything that you have to say, if you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk. Don't just put these people in your book. Reach out to them and let them know that you'd like to include them in your book. This is what you're looking at writing, seeing if they have any input. You want them to feel proud that they're not only being included in your book, but to feel really comfortable with what you have to say about them. Great idea. I started reaching out, and all I could tell you is the first 20 people, they were all fakes.
Oh.
Nobody was doing what they said that they were doing. I would get close to reaching somebody, and I'd get their assistants that would say, why do you want to put this guy in your book? He didn't do anything that he said he did. Or somebody would say to me, oh my gosh, this person is such a jerk. Why? And I finished, I was at my lowest of low, and I went, oh my God, if this is where we are in terms of humanity, we are in huge trouble. And you don't get much more depressed than this. There's nothing. And again, wonderful advice I got. Julie, take a breath. Step back, step away from the book. My publisher said, step away from this for 2 weeks. And go do anything. Go redecorate a room, paint something, go plant a garden, go just get away from this. And then you're going to come back and you're going to start all over again, and you're going to dig deeper. And that's exactly what I did. And the people that I've written about, I can't even tell you kind of how I found them. You kind of get into a space and you go down a rabbit hole and you go, wow, this person's doing incredible things. Let me reach out to them. And what was amazing, a number of things were amazing, is that the people that I found, when I reached out to them, and many don't speak English, so thank you, Google Translate. I'm reaching out all over the world to people, and most of them responded within a few days. And it's like, whoa, that's what I'm looking for, is, creating community, creating connection. These people are responsive. They helped me. They gave me the behind the scenes. They're doing absolutely incredible things. And I'm honored to actually have each one of these people included in the book. And what's amazing is the book is out. I look at the people that I've written about, and here we are, the book's already out or whatever. These people are all fireflies. They continue to grow. They continue to change. I'll get a note. I'm doing this now and this now. And they continue to inspire me. Mm-hmm. And I go, okay, if these people are inspiring me, I know that I feel really confident having made that choice. But part of that was going through the process.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about one of the stories of somebody in the book. Like, what is an inspirational story that you share in there?
Well, first, let me explain that the concept behind the book is that everything is connected. So if you're looking to transform the world, maybe you work in the arts, maybe you work in science, maybe you're working in business, all of these things, social justice, are interconnected. One thing is connected to something else. And so the people that I have highlighted are doing many, many different types of things. There are 2 women that are still based in Australia, that during the AIDS crisis in Africa, there was a period of time before we were providing medicines to help where everyone was dying, and you could have 25 children living with a grandmother. And these are kids, that don't really understand what's happened. And there are some amazing groups that jumped in and started to help. And when we think of these help groups, it's like we got to make sure that they're clothed. We have to make sure that they've got food. We have to make sure that they, have a place to live. That's great. Dr. Julie Stone is a family psychiatrist based out of Australia. She's in the Sydney area right now, but came from Perth. And she went over there. She was invited to go work with one of these groups. And she looked around. She said, everybody's taking care of these needs. But what about nurturing? What about play? We tend to always forget the importance of that with kids. So she came back. She's friends with an artist, Georgia Efford. And she said, Georgia, I'm thinking that these kids need something soft, something to play with, something that kind of represents them. I'm thinking kind of like of dolls, but all the dolls don't really represent them in terms of the wide ranges of colors, from being dark, brown, and, all of the skin range tones. And Georgia, who's an artist, said, we're going to start making dolls, and we're going to do dolls of color. And we're going to start doing this just as a volunteer effort. And we're going to start shipping these to South Africa. They started an organization called the Utando Project. Utando means love in Zulu. And they've been shipping, I think over the years now, they're like over 100,000 dolls. These are things that, crafters, doll makers said, wait a minute, I'll step up, I'll help. And that begins creating community. And they started shipping these dolls to South Africa, where they're used. At first, they were given to the caretakers. Think of this, we're Americans. We have this very Western way of saying, oh, I'll create a doll, but I want to name it and I want them to know that this is from Julie. And it's like, no, we're going to give these anonymously to the caretakers. And the caretakers, because they have so little, now have a gift of legacy to pass down to the children that are there, and it comes from them. And it's very powerful, and it's grown. Now they're used in therapy. The dolls, which they're still doing, go from everything from female dolls, male dolls, grandparent dolls, to sometimes it's animals from Africa, just things that help therapists and different family members help to nurture these kids. Now, the addendum to this story, here it is, and it's in the book, the Utando Project, and anybody's, can go find out more information. It's still going strong today. But these are fireflies that I've written about, and they keep growing. Georgia Efford just turned 84 years old. And she wrote to me and she said, I want you to know, as an artist, I've waited all this time. I finally have my one person art showing that's being shown in a museum here in Perth. So, it's like a double layer that not only do they continue to inspire me, but there's no age limit in terms of what you can do or when you can do it, and no constraints. And they all do this in different ways. These guys are doing this through creating dolls. There's a French couple that I've written about that started their own refugee food festival to introduce people to different cultures through food. And they've begun working with UNESCO, United Nations, the Education, Science, and Culture Organization. John Francis is a guy that stopped talking in the 1970s when he saw an oil spill. And he did nothing but talk about it. And for his birthday, everyone kept saying, John, just shut up, shut up. So for his birthday, he stopped talking. And he said, I'm going to be quiet for a day and I'm going to just listen. And he learned so much by the end of the day. He said, I'm going to keep doing this. And he stopped talking for 17 years. But while he stopped talking, he became known as the Planet Walker. He started walking and listening to people's stories all throughout the United States, and he went to the Caribbean. And during this time, he also got a doctorate. Absolutely amazing. So this is another person who's not only in the book, but after the book is already out and published, I get this note from John, if you need to reach me, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be kind of out of touch. I'm leaving tomorrow for Johannesburg, South Africa, and I'm walking to Egypt. I'm going to walk all across Africa. And he just turned 79. So it's, the concept of these people that are out there, that they're people just like you and like me, and they're doing it. They're following their dreams. They're making things come true. They're making it work. Each is doing it in a different way. And then if they can do it, you and I can do it too.
Love it. So, what inspired you? You mentioned that you started with a different book. You started writing a different book, and then you were like, "This is not this isn't the book," and this
Yeah.
kind of came out of you, right? So, what was it that you set out to do originally, and what inspired you to go this direction instead?
Well, great question. And, since something I find, Kelly, is lots of people are part of writers groups where they check each other's writings. And I kind of pull back from that and say, you know what? You want to be surrounded by a group of people who just are supportive of what you're doing. It's not a matter of changing the grammar. That's what editors are for. It's a matter of getting what's inside you on paper. And usually I find when we're stuck for a reason. And you want that group around you that's supporting that part of it, not the bones of how you're writing your book. And I was very lucky. I was in a group of authors and talking about what we're doing. Had written a book. I've spent many years working within the education system and alternative education and finding different ways, because I feel that our system is not geared for creative thinkers, for innovators. And it amazes me. We build these buildings that we keep kids in, from elementary school all the way through high school. And then once they're out and they're done and they've finished their college years or just go out in the world, now we expect them to be great citizens of the community. What community? We've never introduced them to the community. We've kept them behind these walls. So I started, my first manuscript is An Extraordinary Education, that was based on my experience through the education system. I actually dropped out of school when I was 14. And I ended up 14, but I ended up going to college. So when I was 14, and I thought that I hated school. What I learned is I hated the fact that I didn't feel like I was learning anything. And I had an older sister that I was helping her move into an apartment, and she'd say, I've got to go to classes tomorrow. Can I go with you? And I started going to classes with her and said, no, I like this kind of learning. And I talked the school provost into saying, I want to come to school and to college. And I couldn't get college credit. Today you can. I couldn't get college credit for it, but they said, you know what, we'll let you get your high school credit while you're attending college. And that's kind of continued. Here I am all these years later, and I think I've attended 8 universities, maybe 9, and I'm still going. Because to me, it was always about the learning.
Yeah.
And I have a daughter that was having difficulty in school, and I ended up designing her full curriculum and going in a full different way. And I thought, you know what, I need to be sharing this information to show that there are other ways, and what education is really supposed to be about. We've made it about degrees and about grades, and we forgot to make it about learning. And we teach science and we teach English, and we forget to put it together. I was on a panel once of scientists, and they said, oh, what do you all think are the most important things that children should learn in school if they want to become scientists? And everyone's going, oh, they need to learn their math, and they need to know calculus and da-da-da. And my answer was, they need English. You can come up with the idea of the century, and if you can't communicate it, then it just lays flat. So here I was already gung-ho to do this book. And I was sitting with a group of authors, and part of what we would discuss is not just what your book is about, what you're trying to do, but what you're trying to accomplish with it. For most of us, you write a book like The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies. What's its purpose? Its purpose is I want people to read it. I want people to get a lot out of it, but I also want to use it as a tool to be speaking to audiences, to wake them up, to say, hello, if you're not a reader, here's a different way to get that information, to know. I could do it through lectures. I could do it through keynote speeches. I do it through workshops. I do it through coaching, both individual and group levels, to say, let's put this into practice for you.
Yeah.
And I keep a limited capacity with this because I've also learned I don't want to grow to that amount where I say, yes, sign on with me and you can deal with one of my coaches. No, it's like this is one-on-one to help people really get the most of what I've written to take it to that level. So that was my purpose. Sitting down with other authors, what is your purpose? Why are you writing this book? And when it's out and done, beyond the bestseller, what do you want to be doing with it? Do you want it to sit on a bookshelf? Do you want it to be read by book clubs around the country? Is it important for you to be in libraries? Do you want to be speaking in libraries? How do you envision this? We get so stuck with what we want to say and share with the public, we forget to stop and think, how do we want to utilize it? What do we want this to look like afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
And that has a big impact. And I started realizing, yes, I want to tell people in terms of education, but do I want to travel the world or the country talking to people about education over and over and over again? I don't mind that, but oh my gosh, no, I need something bigger. And this was my something bigger. And it's like, it's not just about education, it's about people who are doing things to transform the world in many different ways. And I had spent 3 years working on writing is a slow process, slower for people like me who have to think things through for weeks before they actually get down on paper. I spent 3 years working on an extraordinary education. And here I am within a group and going, oh my gosh, now I'm seeing the future. I can talk for the next 50 years about the extraordinary power of fireflies and new people who are doing this. I don't know. It feels too limited in terms of education. And that's a devastating reality. Oh my gosh, these 3 years. But no, the advice was put it to the side. It's still there. And that will be the next book that comes out, and really focus on what is that ultimate message that you want to get out. The other thing that happens, I think, too, is when we're writing, we get so immersive. I've got to make sure I say this and this and this and this, and we kind of go overboard. And when you start thinking about how you want to use your book, and the fact that when your book is published, not only have you grown and gone through this huge progression, but you continue to grow. So there's going to be new things that, you go, oh, if I could rewrite the book, I'd add this and this and this. And it's like, no, think of your book as that foundation. And not everything has to be in it, because if you want to be speaking to people, you're going to add to here's what's not. I mean, what great thing is this? If you're going to interview me and I'm only going to tell you this is what's in the book, but now if I can come and say, Kelly, here's some other things that, there's nothing in the book that says, oh, the first 20 people were thrown away. And I couldn't work with that.
Right.
Start again. Those are the extra things. And you go, okay, what's most important? And the other things, it's not that I'm not addressing them in the book, but that's why I coach, because there's more. And that's why I speak and I lecture.
Yeah, yeah. What you mentioned, so I love that you brought up the title of my podcast, which is Beyond the Bestseller. I occasionally remind people that the reason for the title of my podcast is that people have different reasons for writing their book, and it's not just to be a bestseller, right? Like, what is the real purpose behind why you wanted to write that book? Sounds like we got that message loud and clear from you in just, you're wanting to inspire people. You're wanting to help people do more than what they think they're capable of doing. But I want to hear a little bit about, you mentioned your coaching practice. So how do you use the book in the other aspects of what you do in your business?
The way that I do this with coaching, one-on-one, is to get people to really be clear. I think one of the things that is the barrier for most individuals to really move forward is that they're not super, super clear on what it is that they want, what they're looking for, and How do you define success? And these are some things that are covered in the book. We go deeper into that. You know, if I go, oh, I'm not successful unless I've made $1 million and unless I'm driving a BMW. What if I'm a person, I really don't care what kind of car I drive. And I don't care if it's $1 million. I just want to be financially comfortable. So it's like, how do we know that we've reached success if we don't define really what that looks like? And I think the other thing is, and that every writer and every Firefly, anyone trying to do anything to bring their dreams to fruition and to make an impact and help transform the world, we all face self-doubt. And you need that constant encouragement. And, you know, that's why even in terms of writers, they say, don't give people like your chapter to read and say, give me feedback. If you're comfortable with it, maybe those people who are reading it are not your audience. It's nice to get feedback, but each one of us has something inside that we want to share. What
Yeah.
is it, and what does it look like to you? What is the business that you're trying to do? And working with coaching, a lot of times, and I love doing, and I've done more, actually have a waiting list at this point, group coaching,
Good
so
for
that
you.
people get feedback from other people. And to kind of say where are things at. I've got a group. I've got a gentleman who's really looking in terms of a position, a marketing position, has been interviewing, and we've been going through this process of, we're so busy as a society, as an example, saying, oh, you've got to use ChatGPT and this is the right thing to say and this and that. And it's like, okay, now step back from it and look what you're writing to these people. You sound desperate, right? And, oh, it's such a pleasure to meet you and thank you so much. And da, da, da. How about just putting yourself out there saying, these are my skills and my expertise, and I appreciate just having the opportunity to meet with you. But a lot of it, you know, is groveling or things that we think that we're supposed to say. And in negotiating, you know, it's always the salary negotiation. And this is a typical example of how this works in terms of coaching. And he said, you know, we sat down, and within the group, I said, what is your base salary that you will not go under? That is your bottom line for negotiation. And that means anything that comes under that, you're out the door and you say, thank you very much. But that really establishes who you are. It sets this up in your psyche. You're sending that message out to the universe. I'm not going to do anything for below this. This is my bottom line. And had this position he was really hoping for and put in, and they came back to him and said, oh, we're really sorry. We love you. You were the most amazing candidate of all, but we can't do this financially. That's not how much we were looking to pay. So he said, I want to bring to the group and check this out. I have this sample email that I want to send back saying, thank you so much. Can you tell me like what you're thinking about, you know, and maybe we can negotiate.
Yeah.
And I went, wait a minute, we got to start looking at this from a different perspective. Now he would have sent that out. And what would you think if you were the person who said this was his bottom line? He said he'd only take this, but now he's going to take this. I don't know. I don't see him in the same light anymore.
Yeah.
Now he's willing to negotiate. He was ready to send this out. It's like, absolutely not. But let's come up with an alternative way. How about approaching it to say, I understand if you're feeling that this is a financial risk, but, you know, look at what you can gain having a seasoned professional that's on your team, and without having to take the financial risk. If you'd like to do any freelance projects to see how that looks and how that lands, I'd be happy to work with you on that limited basis so that you can see what this does and what this can have for your company. Oh my gosh, and I never thought about this. Well, he never thought about this because we let insecurity take over.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my God, I put this out there that I need to do this. And they said, no, so I must not be worth it. Yes, you're worth it, but
Yeah.
there are different ways to play that out.
Yeah. That's a great story. I recently had so my part of what we do at my company is ghostwriting services, and ghostwriting is expensive. Like it's just expensive, and I know what the pricing is out there, right? So I had somebody come to me recently, and I told them, I gave them a quote on the pricing, and he walked away and said, well, that just makes me really nervous, and I was like, that's fine, like, go, I totally understand. And I mean, this part I didn't say to him, but I also know what you're going to find out there, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned, because I know you're going to get quotes higher than what I gave you. And so I'm not going to compromise on my pricing. This is what it is. 3 weeks later, I got an email from him. All right, let's go. Let's do it. Right. I was like, all right. But, if I would have tried to compromise just to get him, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have gotten the pricing that I knew was actually reasonable pricing. So
Right.
yeah,
And not only that, you're getting a client that knows that if you waffle on that, you'll
yeah,
waffle on other
yep,
things.
yeah,
And especially with something like ghostwriting, and it's not even just the cost, it's the quality.
yeah,
You
yep,
really kind of get what you pay for.
yep,
Uh, and that's true in terms of ghostwriting. That's true in editing. It's like,
yep,
where do you want
absolutely.
to be? And
Yeah,
it's like, that's why I tell authors, you don't need to be edited by, a group of other people who are trying to do their first book
yeah,
too.
yeah,
You need to get your story out and deal with a professional
yes, that's
that
right.
is going to edit, or a ghostwriter if you've got problems in terms of doing this, but you want someone who's really good with this. And the other thing is when you have one of these that starts digging in, going, oh, Kelly, but the price isn't right. This is not really a client that you want. I mean, I don't care
Right,
how much they're
right,
paying. Is it worth working with someone like that?
right.
And this client of mine, I said, you know what, you put this out there, and if she's a smart businesswoman, she'll go, wow, this is a way to get great expertise on one project. And if she doesn't, don't go back and beg this, because this is not someone that you
Right,
want to be working with.
right.
You want someone who's going to appreciate the skills and talents and what you have
Yeah.
to offer.
Yeah. And it's hard to do when you're small, but the more you stick to your guns on the pricing and what your expectations are, the more you start raising the bar for yourself and your company.
Right.
And. So yeah, I 100% agree with that and have had that experience.
Well,
Well,
and I think that's the biggest thing on coaching
yeah.
because it's so easy to fall off that path. It's reminding everyone.
Yeah, and it's great. It sounds like it's great to have a coach like you who's helping you see yourself as a higher level than what you think of yourself. We all have that imposter syndrome and don't see ourselves as the experts that we are, right? And you help bring that out of them. Well, Julie, I will link to your book, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies, in the show notes. Tell us how else listeners or viewers can find you online and learn more about you.
I have a website at just www.extraordinaryfireflies.com, where you can actually book a 30-minute consultation for free. And the nice thing is, for anybody who is concerned that there's no sales involved, there's no anything, and you get to find out, in just a short thing, what does it mean to have a coach? And is it something that you'd ever want to consider? And sometimes you have someone in your life that does that for you, or you're surrounded by a group of people. Other times you're not. And so it's a good thing to have in your back pocket. And if nothing else, I tell everyone, you can always connect with the social media handles that are through the website, for Facebook, for Instagram. But I have a sign-up sheet you can download for free. It's called Flying Lessons for Fireflies. They give you just some basic exercises to start right now, today. You don't have to wait, but it puts you on my email list. And once a week, I send out just a small email that the whole purpose of it is to give you something to keep you going, that's encouraging and inspiring. So anyone who needs that. And the nicest feedback that I get are from the people who get the emails just going, this is exactly what I needed to hear this week. And I write these on my own without AI to say this needs to come from my heart. But I always joke to say I write the things that I need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we all are in need of that support and the encouragement.
Yeah, yeah. Well, great. Well, thanks, Julie. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. And like I said, we'll link to your book in the show notes and also the other your website, like you mentioned. So yeah, so thanks so much for coming on and sharing that with us.
Oh, Kelly, thanks for having me. And for anyone who's listening, all I can tell you is just keep writing. Don't stop.
Looking for a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey? Join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyschuknecht.com.